What's up, YouTube? It's Joe Catchpolia sitting on the couch trying to make a little money investing in fractional real estate online. Unfortunately, today I'm making a little bit less. Let me tell you what's going on. I got this email from Lofty today. It's a property update from one of these properties that I own. Said, hey, the co-owner. If you haven't heard anything about the co-ownership structure, that's somebody. That's basically the person who brought it to the platform. They act as the liaison typically between the Lofty and the property manager, or sometimes they manage themselves. That's not the situation in this case. They're also the ones responsible for the debt. And so we get this note: hey, the co-owner paid off $30,000 of his loan and was issued 600 new tokens. And so this is one of the risks that I've been talking about quite a bit, where the debt structure on Lofty artificially bloats your returns, and as the debt gets paid down, your returns get lower and lower. They're completely upfront about this. It's not that it is something they're hiding, but I think a lot of people don't realize just how drastic this can be. And so this is my first example of one where I've owned it, and it's been a big dilution, where other than not just monthly payoffs. This is the property right here. My basis in it, you can see my average token cost is $44. This is actually not exactly right. It's because they do, I think, the first in, first out accounting, because I had spent a little bit more for some, and then I spent less for some, and then I sold some. So I don't think this is exactly accurate. I think that my basis is closer to $46 on average. But in any case, it says it's $44. It's not. I don't really need to quibble with it. It depends on which ones I sold, right? But that's besides the case. I just want to show you how drastically this changed things. So, if you're not familiar with the structure, there are when we look at the order book, we always see tokens, and there's two sets. This larger set is the number. If you take this number and you multiply it by the tokens outstanding, that should equal roughly what us as investors are valuing the property at. So here, if it's at the $50 value times this, you should get this number here. Or actually, I think at the market cap, it's actually using this. Let's see which one it is, right? So, what's happening there? Get that calculator out. 4326 times 50. Oh, it is. They're using the house canary value, not the estimated price. I don't love that, but that's what they're doing right here. But so that's the total, right? But that property value represents some equity and some debt. And so currently there is still some debt on it. And if you look at the outstanding debt, current loan, 87,008 or 450. And so let's go back to the order book. That 87,450 is what's making up the difference between this larger number of tokens minus the smaller number of tokens. Divide that number by 50. That should be the difference, right? And so as the loans get paid down more and more tokens get put on this side. Well, why does that affect us, right? I mean, what's the deal? What's happening is, they have monthly cash flow, and this is, cash flow after everything. This is what they're actually distributing. And, if they want to look at this number getting paid out, this number gets paid out to the token holders, but it gets paid out. Let's go back here. It only gets paid out to these token holders, right? And one of the things you'll notice is in the debt, there's no mention of paying any interest or mortgage payment. And that's because in these structures, the co-owner is responsible for making those mortgage payments, and they don't get to use the income from the property to do that. Now, in practice, most of them still kind of are, because there are what they're doing is holding enough tokens that their cash flow can help them pay that. But in some cases, that's not always the case. Sometimes they don't hold enough tokens and they're paying it some other way. But so I did a little math on this one because I love my spreadsheets, right? So before we had this payoff, this was the structure we had, right? The total rent, and this is annualized, and you'll see mine is $1 different than that because I actually just multiplied this number by 12. I think what this probably means is that this number is rounded up, and I should have not done it that way. But I picked the monthly cash flow because this is what's actually being distributed right now. Uh, but again, I mean, maybe that was the wrong way to do it. So sometimes my numbers are a little bit off when I do this sort of thing, and I think that's why. But that rent doesn't change, right? Before and after the payoff of the debt, the property is bringing in the same amount of money because again, that co-owner is paying the debt. And so before this happened, before the 600 extra tokens were diluted because that debt was paid down, we are dividing this amount of income by 1,977 tokens. And so my yield at my basis was about 16, a little bit over 16%. At $50, which is what most tokens go for. When I started this, the price was a little bit different. It's now moved to 49.20, but the yield on these tokens now, they're they're showing 11%, right, which is 10.83 because I'm doing it 50, not doing the 49. Let's see if we change that to 49.20. Does that get us right where they are? Oh, I had to shut my nut and lock off. 49.20. 1101. Yeah, 1101. Okay, so we'd match up exactly right if we were using that, but I was looking at it at $50 because it was different, right? So, but in any case, you're now and I think that's probably why you've seen this token price move down a little bit, right? Is because people are unhappy that they're getting less of a yield on this and then they're going to sell some more. Now, you could say there's a little bit less risk involved because the leverage has gone down. And I actually think that's true. On this particular one, I don't know how much that's helping us. The co-owner is responsible for that risk, but if they don't pay it, somebody could take the property back. But losing almost 4% of my yield, uh, to me, it's not worth it, right? So like this is like and there's another 80 something thousand dollars in debt that they can pay down and dilute us further, right? And I guess that's one thing that I really should have looked at, like what happens, um, and let's look at it real quick, right? What happens when they pay off the rest of the debt? And so then we're going to go to this. So this number changes to 4326. Yeah, then right, it ends up being right where your cap rate is, right? Which is what they always say, right? Your yield approaches your cap rate. Well, you can imagine once this property is yielding 6.45%, nobody's paying $50 for tokens on here anymore. They're going to be paying significantly less. And so, that's the real thing. I'll be, because I am in for a little bit less, I'll be getting, 7.33. I think that I'm going to change this back because I could hit the back button, but I'd have to expand that. So let's see, 2577. But so that's how much just a 30K payoff of the debt affects my yield, right? And then just if they pay the rest of it off, yeah, going down to 7 is just not very attractive. It's not something I'm going to hold long term at that rate. We could always at that point. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's not even it's not a high enough yield to be um very excited about it anyway. So I think what I'm going to do is slowly start to sell my tokens. But one of the things that I noticed is, so I have these tokens staked, and I have gotten a little bit of a trading, a reward from trading. Not very much, but some. This actually is probably, if you add it all up, equal to, I don't know, 6 days of my current rent payments that I'm getting. So really not that much at all, but it's a little extra boost. But when I go to try to withdraw these tokens, you can see, I can't even withdraw them all, right? There'd be one that's stuck in there. I could take out 29 tokens to start to sell them, but then I might end up having one stuck for a very long time. So what does that mean? I mean, you know, it's one of the reasons. So I bought this a little earlier on. I am, like I said, I mean, for the most part, I'm not putting a ton of money on here right now, right? I'm very much trying to experiment, learn how things work, see how it goes. But this is definitely not a result that I'd be that I'm very happy with. I'm going to slowly get out of this property, which is too bad because, at the higher and at 12% yield, I mean, I'm still pretty happy with this, right? And we're getting some appreciation, although, I don't expect that to be huge on this particular property. I don't think this is a market that you're just going to make just tons of money on appreciation. And then especially, the co-owner has stated that their goal is to pay off debt, and so as more gets paid off, that's going to really just drive down this token price, and so that becomes problematic. And so I think I'm going to work on getting out of it sooner rather than later. I might end up just with one token because it's stuck in there, and I can't get rid of it. I can't unstake it. I'm actually not sure what I'll need to do about that. But at the moment, it's still trading for a pretty decent amount higher than what I'm in here for. I can imagine though that it's going to go down. I don't believe, um, at 12.31% that this is going to be very attractive to people on this platform. And so this is what I think. This is why I've started to spend most of my time looking at the unlevered properties that are, um, that are just not performing and discounted, because I see a lot of opportunity there. I think a lot of these ones are really just another trap on this platform, right? Like, it comes to the platform, there's maximum debt day one, there's more debt than there's ever going to be on it. So the leverage looks amazing because somebody else is paying for that debt. The yields are super high. This is kind of like what I was talking about when I was looking at, um, what is it called? Oh, I'm not going to be able to. Let's see if I can find it. Anyway, it's what I was talking. Oh, this one right here, right? Where it's like, it's what I was talking about with why this one's really high. I mean, it's just the debt. It's just the debt structure that's creating this tremendous yield. It has nothing to do with the property itself. And so as that debt gets paid down, the same thing's going to happen. Now, in that situation, they're not necessarily planning to pay down the debt, although there is a balloon payment. Um, but in ones that I know that they're going to pay it, plan to pay it down, I mean, it's really problematic. But even ones that's not the plan, uh, getting diluted like that, I mean, just really, it's not a good spot to be in. And so I don't think, for me, this is not it's not the main opportunity, looking at these, um, high yielders when they first come on the platform. I think the real opportunity is finding. So what I think is going to be interesting here, uh, if they pay off the debt and so the yield plummets, the next step will be that the token price goes down. Well, when the token price goes down relative, that makes the value go down relative to the real world price. Um, and then there's an opportunity to step in, buy a bunch of tokens, offer the property up for sale in the real world, sell it, and make a profit, just like what we're trying to do with a lot of those other properties that I've showed you. And so I think that, I don't know, I think they understand the implications of this debt structure, but it's just a way that it makes it so the tokens sell out quick because the newest properties, or the properties with the highest leverage, which are typically going to be the ones that are newest to the platform or most recently bought, are going to always spit out this higher yield. Um, I don't know. I don't. You can tell I don't like it. It's something that I've struggled with since I got on this platform, as is really trying to understand the implications. I mean, it is, a significant change. Let me go back there. Yeah, it's a significant change and it's why, like, if you look at what I've been picking up over time, I started off trying to get these ones that had decent yields, but I do like, I like that I'm getting a 22% yield on this one, right? And I think that it's been one of a very for me. Um, but I think, whenever they pay off the debt on this, which is, let's see, I think there is significant debt property leverage. Uh, once that gets paid off, oh, but this was one I actually liked it because it has a pretty decent cap rate. 7.66. Okay, not fantastic, but pretty decent. Um, but I guess if did I pay full price for these tokens? Uh, no, and I paid a little bit less. So then, that's the cap rate, but I'll have a slightly higher yield than that. But there isn't the same, message that they're going to pay this debt down aggressively like there was with some of the other properties from that same guy. So you can see, early on I was buying these because I thought, oh, I've got a good yield. They're doing well, but I'm really avoiding most of them with that structure. I like this one, right? It is it's a lower yield, but they're taking half of the cash flow every month and paying off debt and burning those tokens instead of giving them to the owner. And when they say burn them, that's what they call it when they just get rid of those tokens altogether. And so us as the token holders actually get the benefit of that debt pay down. And so that's a different structure, and I actually really like it. And it's why I'm willing to take a lower yield on this one, because we're not getting diluted. You know, I'm getting a true benefit from that those tokens getting burned each month. But yeah, over time, I think that it's basically, as debt gets paid off, these tokens will just always end up being worth less unless what has to happen to combat that is the property itself has to spit off more and more cash flow each year, and rents do rise. So, there is the potential, I think, to keep a stable $50 token price if your rents continue to rise at the same rate that you're paying down debt. But if there's any sort of aggressive debt pay down happening at all, it's going to really, really crush your yield. Um, and I do think for a lot of the markets that we're in, it's very unlikely to keep that. And so it's why I stopped really picking up very many of the performing ones. And you can see, what I focused on a lot is these ones that I think that have deep discounts. And for me, the opportunity for these is, really to get in and out of them in a relatively quick period of time. Like, I already had one that I bought and then sold the tokens right, or then the property sold right away and I got paid out. This is another one that I've been buying and, is under contract for sale. That'll be a pretty quick flip, I think. Looks like it's going to be a good profit. And so most of the ones that I'm picking up, that's where I see the real opportunity. And it's sort of too bad because I would like this to be the platform where I'm buying properties, to get ownership of the property and get paid monthly and get the benefits of owning real estate. And I just don't see, because of the way the debt is being treated here, it just doesn't seem like that's the opportunity most of the time. Now, if we start to see more that are doing it this way, or that have the debt within the structure of the DAO, I think it's a little bit better. But so that's why I am putting some money on Mogul. That's one where there isn't this strange structure where somebody else is paying the debt and then you get diluted. And so I think that will be one that I will hold more, over time, pick up more properties for the yield. Now, that's if they're able to, keep the promises that they have. So far, they don't have much of a track record yet. They're still very new. And it's why, for a lot, until I'm more comfortable with that, a lot of where I think I'll end up sticking money is into ground floor, because they have now, I think, a 10-plus-year track record of paying. Now, it's a lower yield, right? It is, their average is around 10 or 11%, which right now I'm doing better than that on most of these properties, right? I mean, this one's not, but it wasn't when I got it. I knew about that. But it is, it's not as good as some of these, but these ones, they're just guaranteed to go down over time. And so if I'm trying to buy stuff that I'm holding very long term, don't want ones that it just makes it very tough to price, like to decide like what it's worth to me today, and how to compare this to an asset that the asset's going up in value, in my yield is also increasing over time, right? Like the ones that if I buy it with traditional debt, that where it's inside of the entity, like the ones on Mogul, that mortgage payment's not going to change over time. the taxes and insurance might go up, but presumably the income's going to go up to match that. And most of the time, if you're in a good market, it's going to go up even a little bit faster. And so over time, my yield should grow on those. And, uh, I'm also getting the full benefit of the leverage from appreciation standpoint. Um, so for performing properties, if they're able to execute on their plan the way they are, I think that's where I'll probably end up being a lot more often. But I still think, the current opportunity that I'm most excited about is a lot of these discounted properties on here because the tokens, because the yields have crashed to zero on a lot of these, even though some of them are, many of them are rented and they're just refilling their operating reserve, but because investors on this site are so yield focused, the token prices have crashed. And so I'm picking up a lot of these. And I think that, until they fix the way they present the yield and until they fix, the debt structure and have it in figure out a way to get it inside the entity, I think you'll constantly have this where you'll have some properties coming on and then over time the prices crash. I'm very, very interested to see, did this market price go down further? Look at this. Um, yeah, 48.73. So people are selling into this right now. Uh, so let's look at the order book and see what. Yeah, today or yesterday, these I think happened even though it just passed midnight, but I think they are on in a different time zone. But so you've gotten a couple of people selling tokens already. Now it's just a few, but it's enough. Like you can see, it only takes 6 tokens to move the price to 48.73. I think what we saw, um, yeah, interesting, and I think we're just going to see more and more of that, right? I don't know. I kind of like I just mentioned I want to sell, but I don't want to sell at a loss. Well, that's silly, right? If I'm going to get a better yield elsewhere, it's something I'm going to have to look at. Maybe I'll sell a few more. The unstaking, where I have a problem unstaking them is part of the problem. Um, it's pretty interesting. It's interesting to see that moved already, and I think there's just going to be more of it. We're just going to see, I think a lot of people will just dump all their tokens in that because they're like, oh well, now my yield is crushed, and now I realize, oh, it's going to get pushed down further. I don't know. I think it's a problem that Lofty probably needs to figure out. Otherwise, there'll be this constant churn. From a sort of selfish standpoint, though, I hope it doesn't ever get figured out, right? Because, um, if this market price really craters, right? If it goes into the 30s, at that point, I'll be buying tokens of it and then be voting that we sell it and make some money that way, right? So that's one of the things too. I don't care so much if my yield, if my yield on the surface doesn't look amazing. Sorry, my screen recording again. I was just saying, I don't care, if my yield doesn't look amazing, when I'm just looking at the yield compared to the price I'm paying for the token. If at the same time I'm getting a big discount when I look at the token price relative to what I think the asset's worth, right? Because at the end of the day, what I really care about is total returns, and that return is partially the yield and it's partially the asset appreciation or the discount that I'm buying at if we're going to be able to move to a sale. Um, I don't think that's a great thing for Lofty as a platform because they're basically any time that we have these problem properties that just end up as a big discount, once they get sold in the real world, it leaves their platform and they stop getting fees on it. So I think they'd probably be better off um, figuring this out to where properties are look more like a real estate investment where the property is paying for the debt and there's no dilution over time from the debt pay down. It's actually accretive to us as far as we're getting a benefit from it versus it harming the investors in it. um the downside of that is you wouldn't see these unbelievable yields on the front end unless they were actually, producing really good properties. Or if you had a really good property and or a okay property and you had good debt, your yield would be, if you had high leverage, you could do something similar. Some of the ones that I've bought, or as I mentioned, Mogul a few times. And again, just because I'm putting money on any of these sites does not mean that they're I I'm still experimenting, right? Like they might not live up to the promises they've made, just like Lofty has struggled with a lot of the investments on here haven't ended up the way that they may have been presented at first. Um, but anyway, it is uh if they could figure out how they can create properties with the same structure, right, where it's the entity pays the debt, that I mean, it looks like they can do it. Like we're having 90 Madison pay some of the debt, although the actual monthly debt payment is being paid by the co-owner there. So I actually think that might be the best of both worlds, right? Because they're getting a tiny bit of dilution from that, but we're actually um, using the cash flow to get, to counteract almost all, the majority of where the dilution would come from. So I'm not really sure what the right answer is. I know at the moment I still see plenty of opportunities. Hopefully this one goes well. I've got a couple others in that same market that if it does, I'm gonna push to vote to sell them as well. And I've been building up a little bit of an interest in them, position in them as over time whenever there's dips. And I think there's real opportunity. It's just not the one that I originally thought that I'd see here, right? And so some of these early ones, they're not the deal that I was hoping. Um, but I don't think they're necessarily a bad deal. Like at a 12% yield, it's still pretty good. Now, the reason I dislike it is because I know it's going to hurt the token price, and when that token price goes down, um, it's just gonna it makes it so it's illiquid, right? Like I can keep holding it, but if I sell it, I'm selling it to a discount to what the property is worth. Um, and so I think the only real solution to get your money out once that happens is to buy up enough of them, get people together, vote on it, and sell it. Uh, which is just, I don't think it's an ideal solution. Anyway, I think that I've rambled about this long enough. I've kind of said the same thing a few times. I always forget. Please like and subscribe. Also, I have links in the description below for all the sites that I mentioned today. If you haven't invested on them before, you can check them out. Um, in any case, until next time, I'm going to just keep making mistakes so that you don't have to.